welcome back to Praggers Gaming. I'm Gamer Praggers and this is Citizen Sleeper. In the last episode we completed episode Flux. It did not end well. Esh took the climbing briar across to the Flotilla and made it through the cordon, however had to leave early and not manage to unload any supplies before she was caught, and is now under and is now in is captured. Peak is still on the eye, but we're waiting. We've got a couple more cycles before anything else can happen. The only other thing we've got going on is we have a job with Bliss to strip out a load of stuff from Ankita's ship, the Ambergris. We are mostly done on that, but I feel that unless something else happens with episode Flux, I feel this is how we're going to end our run, and we will leave with Bliss and Ankita on the Ambergris. It feels right. It's where we started, and I feel it's where we should end. But for now, we need to find some work to get us through until we're able to get on with helping with the next episode. So we're okay on energy, so we'll do that. And not there. We will do a shift there. And we will end the cycle, but we do need to self-repair. No, we might not have needed to actually. We'll feed the stray though, and we'll end the cycle. Okay, decent dice. Okay. So we're waiting on them to germinate. Okay. Let's get some more scrap as well. So we'll do that for some scrap. Then what we'll do is we'll do that. There we go. And then end the cycle again. It hits you like a wave. a white-edged breaker roaring inland with the force of the entire ocean. The impact is a screaming brightness, blanking out everything. Behind it is silence. You float in silence, suspended. No, you do not float. You are the silence. It has filled you up. It has emptied you out. You cease to exist. Time passes, though you do not feel it passing. Then something flickers in the silence. And then something moves. That something is you. You open your eyes to a metal ceiling of flickering lights. You feel the floor around you, patting it with shaking hands. You assemble an image of yourself lying on your back in a corridor. You shake off the silence and sit up. What was that? You glance around looking for a sign of some change. Damage on the walls, shouts in the distance, fire and fear. Nothing has changed. The silence sits around you like fog. You try to think, furrowing your brow. How do you think again? It doesn't seem so easy anymore. You force the pathways to light up, the databanks to grant access. You feel like a fraction drive starting up after a long shutdown in cold vacuum. In the wave was noise, just as the sound produced by a wave raking across a pebble beach represents trillions of impacts heard as a single roar, so this sound was the result of trillions of electrons flickering in place, heard as a single impossible scream. A memory/image comes to you, one from the moments before the wave hit. You squint as you imagine it, trying to cohere its blurry form. A broken skeletal ring, the eye, and then a vast arc approaching it, a razor-edged white curve, the wave. The wave approaches the eye spins, turning each part to face that vast white edge. You recognize their skeletal data cloud forms, the bright market, the low end, the greenway, the wastes, then the wave hits just as the flotilla, the cordon, turns to face it, and after that, everything is silence. You open your eyes again. That is the epicenter. But of what? Even before you reach the cordon, the damage is obvious. The blinking red lights, the drones, the tugs are all gone. Half the cordon's frame has also been shorn away, perhaps through the impact of some failing ship. People push past you in the corridor, both Havenage staff and contractors clearing the cordon. You are met with suspicious looks and scattering warnings, but little else. From the equipment being carried out, you suspect this is no relief effort. Havenage are pulling out of this section of the station. The further you pass into the cordon, the less people you see. You can see a few sections have been closed off, their bulkhead doors sealed, and red warning lights punctuating the corridors, but otherwise, most areas seem functional. Suddenly, you feel a hand fall on your shoulder. Havenage security? You should have known better than to wander into this place. You brace yourself as you turn. Sleeper? Peak's wide eyes greet you as you turn. The cordon. They glance around, panicked. It's gone down. The Briar and Ash are still in there. The Briar and Ash are still in there. Do you think she did this? Or perhaps Havenage messed up? They start pulling you towards the edge of the cordon. We should find her. What if... Calm down, Peak. Peak looks frustrated. We are not standing back and watching this time, Sleeper. Not again. Let's be careful. Peak bristles. I don't want to be careful, Sleeper. I want to see my friend. They raise their voice over the whine of alarms. This could be part of some Havenage plan to clear the flotilla. It isn't. Peak pauses. What do you know, Sleeper? There was a wave. Peak frowns. A wave? What do you mean? They pause to think. A signal that only impacts electrical systems, perhaps? An EMP would have taken out most of the station, but... Peak runs a hand through their hair. I don't know what you're saying, Sleeper. That doesn't sound... They look away down the corridor for a moment. Look, I have to find Ash. I'm sure you felt something, but we can talk about that later. They set off down the corridor. I can't sit around talking any longer. Find me on the flotilla. I'm going to find a way to Ash, no matter what. With that, they rush away into the depths of the cordon, leaving you behind. Seems like you'll need to follow if you want to get any answers. Okay. Alright, so we're going to need some more scrap. So let's pay the scrap toll. You hand over the scrap and squeeze into the crowded shuttle. Time to head to the flotilla. Can't see anything. So, okay. So we'll do this. That's not great. Okay. Ooh, there's Peak. Let's talk to Peak. As you walk into the bay of the climbing briar, the familiarity of the space overcomes any trepidation. It feels good to be back, and the return feels earned, especially after all the work it took to figure out a route through the flotilla's jumble of ships that might lead you to this blue streak. You see Ash and Peak immediately, sitting at the back of the bay, deep in conversation. Their closeness causes you to stop, suddenly aware that you might be interrupting something private. Peak is explaining something forcefully as Ash stares out into the middle distance, hunched over. She suddenly spots you. Sleeper? Ash nods. Didn't quite turn out like we hoped, right? Peak stops and glances between the two of you, the tension rising. I'm sorry. Ash waves your apology away. None of that. We all had our part to play. Peak looks nervous. It has worked out, they appeal to you. The Flux event knocked the entire cordon system offline. The flotilla is free and Havenage are backing off. Flux event? That's what the refugees are calling it, Peak explains. Apparently, that's what they called it when it started happening around Ember. How is the flotilla? Surviving, Ash says bluntly, but the tensions they brought with them from Ember's moons are boiling over after the Flux event. The Flux is some kind of disruptive wave that only affects electrical systems, Peak chips in. So when it hit the flotilla, everything went haywire. The ships are far less well screened than the Eye, so they took the brunt of the wave. The crisis continues, Ash sighs. The cordon may be down, but this brings a whole other set of problems. You should tell them, Ash. Peak glances at her. Please. Ash doesn't respond. Tell you what. You stare at her back, waiting for a response. Please, Ash. Haven't they shown that they can be trusted? Peak nods towards you. Ash turns, her arms folded tightly across your chest. She goes to start and then stops. You can see the anger in her eyes, but you realise it is not directed at you, or at anyone else. She is angry with herself. I brought weapons to the flotilla, she pauses, and now Havenage has them. You suddenly remember the sleek crates that were tucked into the bay, marked with a yellow sigil, the ones Ash told you were just supplies. Havenage? They seized them from me when they caught the briar. Ash kicks at the floor. Shitheads. We hope that they will keep them safe, but given recent events... Peak glances nervously at Ash. We aren't so sure that Havenage is the right place for the weapons to be. I wouldn't put it past them to use them to take the cordon back by force. Ash glares. They are scared and scared and losing control. In my experience, that's when institutions do dangerous things. Whether that's true, we can't do anything about it right now, Ash, short of marching into the yards at the other end of the eye and taking them back. Ash looks like this is exactly what she would like to do. Peak smiles nervously. Plus, we have other things to be getting on with. I want to understand the Flux, Sleeper, to study it. Peak's eyes light up. This thing is changing the entire system, causing problems across the inner system, driving refugees off Ember's moons, and now it's here? If we don't do something about it, Peak pauses, it's a problem for all of us. I can see more immediate problems, Ash sniffs. Peak ignores her. I've been looking at the networks, and when the Flux event hit, it changed things. It shuffled systems, corrupted nodes, and broke open data stores. They take out a slate and show you a flickering polygon. Some of these Flux nodes have appeared near the epicenter of the event, but I can't get access. You, however, I saw the way you worked with data when we were preparing for the run. I think you can get into these things. I want you to find a Flux node and bring me anything you can extract. They come and go, but most can be found in the barely functioning networks of the wastes. Peak pauses. Start there. Perhaps together we can find something that might point us to what the Flux is, and where it comes from. How will that help? Peak runs a hand through their hair. I don't know, Sleeper. Maybe we can't do anything, but I want to know what this thing is. Ash looks indignant. Don't waste too much time chasing ghosts, Sleeper. There are people on this flotilla that need any help they can get. I'm sure Sleeper can do both, Ash. Peak smiles at you. I'll see you here when you have something. Good hunting. And they wave you out as Ash stomps away to make plans of her own. Yeesh. Okay, so we've got the climbing briar. Okay. So... right, that's a Flux node. Ooh, okay. Right. How are we doing on scrap? Let's use that to grab a scrap component. Okay. And then we're going to end the cycle. Yeah, we'll use a scrap node. And then end the cycle. Oh, we got dice-wise. Okay. We'll use these. Okay. Nice. So how many? It is 2. So let's synthesize. Nice. Okay. Then we're going to use a 5 here. Okay. And we'll put that in there. Hopefully that should complete Flotilla's friend. Okay. So we got a new thing there. And then get some energy back. Good news. Right, let's go and speak to the captain of the flotilla. Someone told me I should be thanking you. The voice comes from behind you, cutting through the chaos of the crowded cavernous bay. You freeze. Don't be afraid now. I've been hunting you, sure, but for all the best reasons. You turn to see bright eyes set in a rough face, framed in rusted metal. Saul. He holds out his hand, the other clamped firmly around a knotted wooden cane. He grips you firmly with a heavy and calloused hand. "Forgive me, as soon as I saw you, I knew you were who you were." Sol puts a hand on your shoulder. "I've been told a sleeper was part of that supply run that came in several cycles ago." He nods. "A very welcome act, and we all thank you for it. Walk with me, sleeper." Sol sets off through the bay, his partial suit hissing and creaking as it helps carry him through the busy crowds. You notice people making way for you, and Sol standing back and letting you pass. You pass a makeshift kitchen, steaming pots on heating elements, a restless queue collecting meals. That algae that came through isn't exactly a full meal, but with what we have here, we've been able to make it work. You see a ladle of a greenish stew dished out. "The color is something, isn't it?" Sol smiles. Sol leads you out of the large bay into a corridor lined with stronger rooms, storage rooms that are now serving as dorms. You see someone filling a metal container from a standpipe, the water gushing out redly. Sol nods to the person as he passes. "Just a little further now." Sol leads you into a freight elevator and whistles to some unseen operator to start it up. It jerks into life, and as you pass through the layers of the ship, you see people on every level, supplies crammed into every available space, and sparks leaping in bursts as the ship is reshaped and modified to sustain its population. "If Havenage were expecting an exodus from the Flotilla, the Flux event has put a stop to that." Sol stretches. "Some have crossed to the Eye, but many just to gather salvage or score a hot meal. So the pressure on our supplies is shrinking, but not like I'd hoped. With the Flux reaching all the way out here, people are starting to understand that our journey might not be over." Sol stares grimly ahead. Suddenly, the freight elevator screeches to a halt, and Sol leads you slowly out into a wide room of chairs and terminals, ringed by a mezzanine and with a glass roof above, showing the distant hub and the far curve of the Eye beyond. The people at the terminals nod to him as he enters. "This is your ship?" Sol nods. "That's right. The Pilgrim Seed is mine to care for." He leads you up to a railed platform at the center of the room and stops. "She chose me, so to speak. Well, at least her crew did, and I do my best to serve them." Sol looks around the bridge of the ship, a pained expression on his face. "I'll admit that the responsibility isn't one that suits me, though we rarely get to choose such things." He glances back at you. "But you, Sleeper, from what I understand, you chose to try to help us here. Is that right?" "I was helping my friends," Sol nods. "Of course. Must be some fine friends. But I have to ask you, Sleeper, why are you here now?" Sol leans back and you feel his eyes on you, assessing you. "The Flux event?" "I appreciate the honesty. I had figured as much." Sol flexes the shoulder that is free of the suit. Looking at you now, I can see that an event like that, well, it would have had a big impact." He smiles a half smile. "I have thousands of people here on the Pilgrim Seed, Sleeper, and there's thousands more out on the Flotilla." He leans against a railing. "A lot of them are looking to me to provide some future for them, some path out of this dead end we've gotten into. And this very cycle, the thing we've been running away from, it just caught up with us. So these people are scared, Sleeper, and they're looking to me for reassurance. And then, on the same cycle, someone tells me they see you on board. A sleeper, the same sleeper they reckon, that wanted so strongly to send a ship past the cordon to see us." Sol scratches at his beard. "So the first thing I wanted to do was thank you for that, for your interest." He pauses. "But the second thing I wanted to do was find out what you want from us." Sol's suit hisses and creaks. "I think that's fair, don't you?" Sol takes a deep breath. "So what is it?" "What's happening around Ember?" Someone at a terminal calls out to Sol and he shouts some orders back. He turns to you. "Apologies." He smiles that half smile. "I tell you what, Sleeper, let's you and me make a deal. You want information, I understand that, but I have a list of needs longer than the rim of the eye itself." He grimaces. "So you do some things for me, and then we can talk about what's been happening in this system, and I will answer all of your questions, and then some. I may be the captain of the Pilgrim Seed, and she is certainly the biggest ship in this flotilla, but I'm not the only captain here. We have ships here from each of the moons. We're from Ember's hearth. But
There's others from Ember's Song and even Ember's Step. The moons have been at each other's throats, Sleeper. What with the pressure of the flux, the bad blood from the old days. Sol leans in. We aren't exactly all in alignment. What I need is a way to stop things escalating, for the crews on these ships and their captains to feel happy and comfortable, enough to forget old rivalries and past crimes. He flinches at something. Those from Ember's Step, well, they've always been proud, but that pride seems to be a barrier to compromise right now. The last set of supplies I sent their way, they refused. Meanwhile, I have a supply shuttle at the docking access the Ember's Song ships gather at, but they've taken far too many cycles to unload. Maybe if you're heading that way, you can look in on them. I'm no politician, Sleeper, but if I don't... Sol stops. He leans back and flexes his suit, screeching. He groans a little, and you see the weight of the flotilla sitting on his shoulders, the suit the only thing keeping him vertical beneath all that pressure. Look, you'll see for yourself if you go. Meet the others, Sleeper. See what they need. Keep them aligned. He speaks through the pain, his voice clipped. Are you okay? Not really, but as long as this thing holds, he grimaces. I hope. Sol grits his teeth. You are what they appear to be, Sleeper. He smiles, his half smile, despite the pain, because I'm not sure I can take any more bad news. Plus, there's plenty to be done here on the Pilgrim Seat too. If you have a moment to pitch in, there's never enough around here. That's something I have learnt the hard way. Sol settles onto his cane, the pain visibly receding. All right, I have 1,000 things to attend to now, Sleeper, so you'll have to find your own way out. And with that, Sol sits at his terminal, with slow and careful movements. You head back down in the freight elevator, and as you do, you see again the layers and layers of chaotic life this vessel and all the vessels of the flotilla hold. Okay, so we got a new drive, which is good. So, the Pilgrim Seed, Earth Survival. Oh. Well, that's good. So, Step, Song, and Hearth. Okay, so we can meet Aki. We've got the docking access. Okay. Plus, we've got the climbing briar. Oh, we can do that, but we're not going to. Because that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. Thank you for hanging out. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. If you have not already, please consider subscribing to the channel, ticking the bell so you know when new videos go live. In the description is a link to the channel Discord. Feel free to come and talk about the games you're playing, the games I'm playing, games in general. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.